Okay, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for joining Reform Nigeria Television this evening. My name is Deji Esufu. I pastor Providence Reformed Baptist Church that's situated in the University of Ibadan. Today, we want to look at perspectives. We want to reflect on issues that concern our country, Nigeria, and just to look at a few things. So, the hottest news in Nigeria today is that Ibrahim Babangida published his memoirs at the age of 83. Babangida was head of state or president of Nigeria from 1985 to 1993, some good 8 years. And after he left office in 1993, in August 1993, he has gone almost quiet, incommunicado, and today he has a memoir, and it has been highly criticized, especially for those of us who are in the Southwest. It has been heavily criticized. So the way I want to start this broadcast today is really to ask how many people have watched the broadcast. Sorry, read the book. If you have read the book, you can leave a comment. Whatever your thoughts are on the book, you can leave a comment in the wherever you're reaching us from, and I will display it here. Okay, but one of my guns, Dr. Motorai Adetola, that's situated at Canada, uh, criticized the book based on what he had. Obviously, he has not read it. So I'm going to encourage that people read the book before you make comments. I might not make too much comment on it because I don't have the book readily here, even though I am reading it presently. Okay, but before we go on, I want to posit a theory that I have been playing with, put it on social media, and few people have been criticizing it, so I'm still going to posit it here. And that is the idea that Nigeria is the creation of the Almighty God. Okay, so actually, the whole entity or whole country called Nigeria was put together by the British. Even before the British came, nations were usually not even known to come together. Communities are not known to come together like that to create nations. Okay, the idea of nationhood became more and more popular, especially in Europe and other parts of the world. Okay, as men developed politically and they realized that they could band together. So the British were in Nigeria from the middle of the 19th century, and they saw that there was going to be some advantage if they bring the various communities in Nigeria together. Okay, in that area that is around the Niger. Okay, so that's how we got our name, Nigeria. So the creation of the British, but under the providence of God. Some people have a problem with the fact that when we say Nigeria is a creation of the British, they say that the British did a lot of evil to us, and we shouldn't call it the creation of the British. It's true, they had their excesses. They came to take advantage of the resources we have, but they also did a lot of investment in this country, So by and large, whatever happened with the British and what they got out of us or what we got from them, the whole idea of a nation called Nigeria came from the British. Okay, and Nigeria actually until 1914 was two separate parts. So there was the northern parts and the southern parts, and they were administered independently by the British until 1914 when Lord Lugard brought them together. Okay, and we had one country. Now, from day one, Nigeria was one country, but put together, yes, one country, but two nations, and even not two nations. In each of those nations, you had different parts and different kinds of people. Okay, so that ultimately political scientists came to agree that Nigeria, like any other country in the world, okay, is the banding together of many nations. Okay, countries usually are defined by ethnicity. Ethnicity is defined mostly by the language that people speak. Okay, so if you go to the eastern parts of Nigeria, then you have people who speak Igbo. So everybody there can be regarded as the Igbo nation. You come to the western part, you have the people who speak Yoruba. So everybody there can be regarded as a Yoruba nation. Okay, and then of course you have different nations in Nigeria who may not have as much population as the Igbos and the Yorubas. In the north was predominantly Hausa. Okay, even though there were other tribes, especially in the middle belt part of Nigeria, and in the 18th, no, 17th, that should be 18th century and 19th century, the northern parts of Nigeria was conquered by the Fulanis, who were Muslim, okay, and they brought the religion of Islam on the northern part of Nigeria. Till tomorrow, the Fulanis and the Hausas are not mixed, even though they may have intermarried by now, but they are still a distinctive ethnic groups. Okay, so they are the Fulanis who came from outside Nigeria and are today living in Nigeria. They brought Islam, okay, and they more or less conquered northern Nigeria. Okay, so that's that. And then the Fulanis also had the mentality of conquest. Okay, after conquering Nigeria, they also desired to move into the lower parts of Nigeria. Okay, and they tried to enter into the southwest. They reached Ilorin, but they were pushed back. Okay, so that's that. Now, many Nigerian presidents or many Nigerian leaders were Fulanis. Somebody like Sir Ahmadu Bello, Sir Ahmadu Bello was Fulani. Buhari is Fulani, and a couple of others. Babangida is not Fulani, but Babangida was Gwari. But yeah, his grandfather came from Sokoto, so it's possible that, but I suspect he was just Hausa. Okay, so there's a lot of difference between the Fulanis and the Hausa. But Nigeria, again, the point I'm trying to make so far is that it's the creation of the British under God, is the banding together of many nations together. Okay, then there's another point that I wish to make. Now, Nigeria was created by the British, and by the 1930s, 1940s, and 1950s, Nigerians, educated young people, okay, began to get a lot of education, and they made it clear to the British that whatever they were doing, the British were doing, Nigerians could do it now, so you could leave. Okay, so the whole idea of creating political parties, okay, came forth, and those political parties began to vie for offices and so on. And it made some sense that the political parties that will be created by the people in the southwest Nigeria, which are Yorubas, will win offices in the southwest Nigeria. The ones created in the southeast win offices in the southeast. The ones created in the north win offices. Okay, so the leading political party from the 1951, when John Macpherson Constitution was created in the southwest, was the Action Group led by Obafemi Awolowo. Okay, so they won the offices in the southwest Nigeria, excluding Lagos. Okay, and Awolowo, the story is that he did developed a lot of the southwest of Nigeria. Okay, in southwest Nigeria at that time, there was the National Council of what is that now? Is it Nigerian National Council, whatever, NCNC? Okay, so Zik created the NCNC, and the NCNC was such a formidable party in Nigeria in those days that if the Action Group had not, been politically wise, the NCNC would have won the Southwest and also won the Southeast. But the Action Group more or less outwitted them. And what they did was they actually went into the grassroots, and they won the ordinary people, got the ordinary people to vote for them, and that was how they defeated the NCNC. So the NCNC became the opposition in the parliamentary in the Southwest, and then in the Southeast, the NCNC held office, and then the Action Group were the opposition in the Southeast. And in the North, I can't remember who the opposition was, but the people in office were the NPC, the Northern People's Congress. Okay, that was led by the Ahmadu Bello. Okay, now something's happened. I have a book here written by Obafemi Awolowo, Adventures in Power, The Travails of Democracy and the Rule of Law. I plan to read some parts of it, especially with regards to the 1959 election. Okay, but in 1959, the British had at that time granted Nigeria, agreed to grant Nigeria, independence. Okay, and as our people went to independence, let me just go and be sure that my sound is coming up. As our people went, to the polls, okay, they were ideally supposed to have, campaigned. The action group already had their stronghold, which was the southwest. Okay, but they also went to the north. In fact, the action group outspent everybody in that election. Okay, it's one of the things that got Awolowo into trouble, and eventually they roped a treasonous felony around him. Okay, they spent 10 million pounds at that time on that election. Awolowo went into the north. They campaigned. They had people there. They knew that even though the rulers of the north were the Fulanese, okay, they knew that there was the Hausa grassroots that were not very comfortable with the Fulani. So they reached out to those people and tried to gain them to their side. Okay, but of course, I'm not sure they didn't win. Okay, so at the close of the day, I don't have the figures here, but I think the MPC had about 143. Yeah, they have about 143. Yes, seats at the parliament. The NCNC had 81 or 83, and then the action group 87. Action group had 73. Okay, others had 24. Okay, so now the idea is this: if the action group and the NCNC had come together, okay, to form a coalition, they would have outseated the MPC. But for some reason, the idea was sold to Zig that he could be governor general rather than be prime minister. They told him the idea that you could be governor general, if you are coming to coalition with the MPC. So the NCNC and the MPC went into coalition. Okay, why Zeke and Awo did not go into coalition is another story entirely. I cannot enter into that Magana right now. For now, I just want to make the point that Nigeria is the creation of God through the providence of God. He used the British. Okay, then there's the last point. Now, Nigeria also was kept together by the military. All right, it was kept together by the military. Okay, and you see, the 1959 election was hotly contested. There were lots of bad blood that came out of it, and at the end of the day, our democracy was not properly managed, and the country ended up in a civil war. Okay, the country ended up in a civil war, and young Nigerian men had to go and fight that war. Now, it is the civil war issue that brings me to IBB and possibly some of the things I would like to share this evening. Now, anybody who read the story of between 1960 and 1966 and saw what Nigerian politicians did at that time, they will come to one conclusion, and that is this: that Nigerian politicians were not responsible with the democracy that the British handed to them. They were not. Okay, there were lots of all kinds of things were going on. The same thing that are going on right now. But I think at that time, we took a lot of things for granted. Our politicians took a lot of things for granted. They didn't understand that the democracy they got on a platter of gold, they could lose it. So they took a lot of things for granted. There were lots of rigging at elections. There were lots of bullying of opposition. All kinds of things were going on, and of course, the country, I'm not going to go into the details. We know the story. There was a coup. The country was plunged in at war. Okay, now they sent young Nigerian men to fight that war. From what I'm reading of Ibrahim Babangida's story, okay, Babangida was in the UK. He was sent to the UK in April 1967. April 1967, the country was still tottering towards war. It was almost sure the civil war was going to start. Okay, but of course, there had been no shooting, nothing. Okay, in June 1967, the parliament, there was a people's forum in Biafra or in eastern Nigeria that declared or gave powers to Ojukwu and told him that he had become president and maximum ruler or head of state. Okay, so Ojukwu, came to power, and the first thing he did was he declared the sovereign state of Biafra. Okay, that was in June, was that? No, 27th May, 27th May 19, oh no, why am I getting all my dates wrong? 1st of June 1967. Immediately he did that. What Gowon did in retaliation was that Gowon created 12 states. Okay, what it meant was that the country, or at that time, used to be 3 regions. You had a massive northern region, then you had the southwest, and then you had the middle belt. Okay, yes, the midwestern Nigeria, and then you had the eastern part. Okay, so what he did was he divided the eastern part into 3. All right, he made where Enugu, where Ojukwu was, he made it into a landlocked place. It was strategic, okay, but he made it into landlocked. But he also called it the Eastern Nigerian, something like that. Then there was the Calabar area, Calabar, Akwa Ibom combined together. All right, those were one side, and then you had River State and present-day Bayelsa together. Okay, so all of those things, he just divided that part into 3. Okay, so that the people who were coming from Calabar and Ogoja and so on, those people now had their own state, and they had a sense of independence from the Igbos. Many of them be complaining. Okay, then the oil-rich Niger Delta also had some independence. Okay, so when he did that, of course, that was more or less like full-blown war. Okay, and police action was declared against the eastern parts of the country in May 1967. So, what's his name? Babangida was in the UK for a course. He was actually in the infantry engineering part, so he went for an engineering course, but he had to return quickly, you know, to because the country was at war, and of course he was deployed to the eastern part of Nigeria. He worked under that must have been Major General Shua, who unfortunately was killed by Boko Haram people sometime in 2011. Okay, and Shua was leading Nigerian contingent through Makurdi, and he was the first person who attacked Unsuka and started the war full time. Okay, and so on. Now, Babangida says something in his book that is very, very interesting. Okay, a lot of people underestimate this thing we call the post-traumatic stress disorder, that is PTSD. A lot of soldiers suffer it all their lives. All right, so Babangida talked about his experience at war. Everybody had their own experience, but he talked about his experience. He talked about how a young man who was like his orderly and who was helping him, he was a senior officer then, but he had an orderly, you know, and he said at some point they were just standing trying to do something, and the next thing a bullet came out from nowhere and hit this young man, and he died on the spot. He said till tomorrow he would always remember that young man, you know, and he doubted how he didn't die, he can't tell, you know, and that was the first one. Of course, subsequently, he was, I think he must have been, where was he? Was on Onitsha or Omar here, somewhere where there was a bullet that ran into his chest, you know, and he was immediately evacuated from the war front and taken to Lutz, where he was treated. When he got better, he went back to Niger, got married, okay, got his wife pregnant, and headed back to the war front. All right, the war ended for January 1970 after 30 months. Okay, and it was this young man that fought it. Someday I'll be talking about the contribution of Obafemi Awolowo to that war. But for now, we're looking at things from the lens of Ibrahim Babangida. Okay, now, when they finished the war, the country was restored to peace. All right, there was only one thing that the officers, the military men, had in mind, especially with governance, and that was this, that they cannot afford to have politicians run the country down again into another civil war, so that then they will have to go back and fight and restore the country back to peace. That was the mentality, that was the driving worldview of every military man in Nigeria, at least up till the days when Babangida retired from war. Why? Because if you have been to war, you understand. And you would understand that the war was brought about because the politicians were not responsible with what was given to them. Okay. And if they plunge the country into crisis again, it is the military men that will go to the field while the politicians sit in their houses and try to restore peace back to the country. So that's the more worldview. That's the mentality that was running through the mind of Babangida. And that is why, when there's really no excuse for the annulment of the June 12th and so many of the things that happened during his time. There's no excuse. But what they were doing, at least from his point of view in his book, is that they were trying as much as possible to stabilize the country, so that the country is not run down again by irresponsible politicians. So my question again, my question that I've been thinking of is that I'm not sure whether the politicians that we have today are still any different from the politicians we had in the First Republic. Okay, in the First Republic, there were lots of rigging. It still goes on today. There are lots of money politics. It still goes on today. So what exactly is the difference? Okay, so you are the one to answer that. You can leave a comment and let us know what the difference is between the politicians of the First Republic and the politicians of today. I'm not sure I'm going to go very far with today's broadcast. So let me take my sponsor, Lakim Investment. They are the sponsors of our program. Lakim Investments are a company that owns a shop-led facility at Ikorodu, Lagos. Please, we want to plead with you that you patronize them. When you patronize them, you help us to remain in business. Then they will have resources to continue to support us. Lakim Investment. Please call the number that you see on that and let them know if you want to do business with them. The facility is very close to a place where there's a ferry. You can take a boat ride to the island and actually do your business on the island and then come back to stay at the facility at night. Okay, now 2 days ago I wrote an article that I titled Kemi Badenoch as God's Anointed or Is God's Anointed, where I made the argument that Kemi Badenoch is actually a blessing to our time, and of course it's also one of the reflections, one of the things that you can get from the life of Kemi is that Nigerians are doing great things, and that if our politicians are not getting governance right today, it's not because Nigerians cannot govern. It's just simply because we still have not delivered ourselves from this First Republic kind of politicians. We're still doing the same thing. The only thing the Lord has showed mercy to this country on is that we have not been plunged into another extended war. Okay, so Kemi Badenoch is 42, 43. Okay, she's presently the leader of the Conservative Party in the United Kingdom. And if her party wins, she becomes prime minister straight away. Okay, when you remember that Obafemi Awolowo too was 42 in 1951 when he came to government with the action group, and they did so much. And in the article I compared, I said that, look, Kemi Badenoch is something of an Obafemi Awolowo as far as I was concerned. I said that, the same way Awolowo had energy, had focus, had ideas, the same way this lady is behaving. Okay, and then some Nigerians they are very uncomfortable with Kemi. They say that she came to Britain through immigration. She wants to now shut the door against immigration. Well, the fact remains that what exactly are you going to do in the United Kingdom? What are you going to do there? Okay, this whole Japa thing, we must discourage it as much as possible. What are you going to do there? Okay, it's some people that give us the country that we have today. What country are we bequeathing to our children? What are you going to do? All right, we said to the white men, we said, look, we can govern ourselves. Leave. You people are colonizers. We can govern ourselves. And they left 65 years ago. Today, we are now going back to them, and we are being colonized, not in Nigeria, but in their country. Okay, it doesn't make any sense. All right, what's the essence of living if we came to this world and we didn't make it any better than what we met it? Okay, so Kemi is basically following her dreams and fulfilling her passion. She's married to a British. She has children. She's British. Okay, she's serving the British. She doesn't owe Nigerians anything. Okay, she doesn't. All right, we are the ones that owe ourselves the need to fix our country. And if we can have a Kemi Badenoch as head Prime Minister of Britain, why can't we have young Nigerians do the same thing in Nigeria? The people in Nigeria, in the Nigerian government, are not going to hand over power to us. Yeah, Tinubu is not going to hand over power. Atiku will not hand over power to us. It's Nigerians that must take governance seriously. Okay, young people, if possible, come together, create a political youth movement, and start something, and wrest power from these people. It can be done. I was reading Babangida's book. He's talked about 70% of the nation's population is youth. You can't get one youth, a 40-year-old, a 38-year-old, a 35-year-old, to lead a movement and wrest power from these people. If you can't do it, it's your fault. It's not these people. They are not going to give you power. You are going to have to prove to people that you are better at governance than they are. Okay? So Kemi Badenoch is helping us to rethink this Japa thing. She's helping us. We thank God for some of our people who are out there. Thank God for those who are doing well, who are helping to support us. One of the people who are supporting this channel is abroad. Okay? So we thank God for them. But the truth of the matter is that all of us cannot leave this country. We can't get all the education we got, all the support, everything we got, and then abandon the country and say, because you have an education, now go abroad and then become colonized there. And then it's even worse, because if you are being colonized in Nigeria, at least you will have good weather. You have your people but you are there in this horrible weather and so on. Okay, so we have to rethink this thing. All right. So that's that. There's another thing that came up with regards to politics in Nigeria, especially with this matter of our irresponsible politicians, is the man called El Rufai. Okay, so I have El Rufai's book somewhere. Accidental Public Servant is beautiful book. You need to get it, read it. Okay, and now El Rufai is not a saint. He has his issues, but the fact remains that he's also a very sensible person. El Rufai was able to tell the All Progressive Congress, made it very clear to them that this party is not a one-man issue. It's a collective. People created the APC. Okay, and since they came to power, they've not held one Congress. They've not. And because El Rufai said it, they held the Congress yesterday. You can see how these people are thinking. All right? What obviously happened was that Bola Tinubu came into office, almost bought up everybody. And now when he came into office, he didn't owe anybody anything. Why? Because he has paid everybody. Which is another issue entirely. This matter of money politics. All right? So I'm going to end just the way I started. Before you criticize IBB, please get the book, read it. Okay, when you read it, then you can make informed decision. I was reading how he his thoughts on Dele Giwa's death. I know it's really sad, very, very sad. I was explaining to somebody, and maybe I will just close with that. I was explaining to somebody that when we were growing up, we used to watch our crime movies, and almost all of those crime movies had a line. They had a way they followed. Okay, so the movie starts with normal, natural life. Then at some point, somebody is killed. Okay, and then most of the movie, from the beginning to towards the end, the investigator, the person doing the what they call it, the search, okay, will be beaming his light on one person, and all of us will it must be this person, it must be this person, and before you know it, at the end of the movie, the person that did the crime will be discovered, but it will be somebody nobody ever thought of, somebody else entirely. But the person did the crime in such a way as to implicate another person. Okay. Now, when Dele Giwa was killed, the Paso bomb came, and since then, before then and after that, nobody has used Paso bomb in this country. Very interesting. The Paso bomb came, and it had the seal of the federal government on it. It doesn't make any sense. If I'm gonna kill somebody and then I send the person a letter, I write my name on it. It doesn't make any sense. Okay. And then Babangida said, look, this was 1986, less than a year after they had come into office. People were looking for how to make their government unpopular. And will it be difficult for somebody to take somebody who was a journalist, well known, who was known to be working on some sensitive cases, and have this person murdered in such a way as to implicate government? We don't know. Anyway, Bangla said he doesn't know who killed Dele Giwa, And I'm not saying I believe him. I'm not saying he's lying. I'm just saying, look, before you judge the man, please get the book and read it. I tried to do something along politics at the midweek, and this weekend we're going to try to look at something on religion. Next week we're going to have Reverend Father Imbayari back to do a response on the debate he had with Abu Abdin. My name is Deji Yesufu. I pastor Providence Reformed Baptist Church. We're situated at the University of Ibadan. If you want to get to know more about what we do, please send me an email at newdgx@gmail.com. Thank you very much for watching.